thought in this video I'd talk about something I don't talk about very much, that being what it's like to be enlightened. And there's a lot of to-do about the idea of who it is that's enlightened and all of this sort of nonsense. And it's like, well, the Dave in the dream is enlightened, not Dave the Christ, or like Jesus Christ wasn't enlightened, but Jesus in the dream was. So there's a Dave Christ, and then there's the enlightened, or the illuminated, or the part of the mind that was of the forgetting, which has remembered, and that transpires into the dream. It's not remembered here. The illumination doesn't occur here in time and space. It occurs in mind as whole, of which Dave is an expression in the dream realm, let's say. But just for practical terms, so people can sort of like point at you and go, oh, that bloke's enlightened. I mean, it'd be, it'd be pretty pointless to have that whole experience and know that people are looking for teachers and guides and all, which is what the world is. Like Jesus says, without God's teachers, there's little hope of salvation in the world. And that's directly from the Course in Miracles. And from the Bible, he says, what you hear in the ear, shout it from the rooftops, and like what you hear in the ear, if you hear God's voice, shout it from the rooftops. So with that regard, nothing exists. And I'm not going to get into that side of it right now. I've done plenty of videos about that. But I wanted to talk about, if you look at the idea of the beautiful little saying by Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese philosopher, I guess, from 600 BCE, thereabouts, who said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? Which tends to present the notion that before enlightenment, whatever you were doing prior to the moment of illumination, you're going to be doing exactly the same thing afterwards, right? It's like all of a sudden, all the study, meditation, prayer and everything, boom, you have the experience. And then afterwards, well, obviously you don't need the study and the prayer and the meditation and everything, because the purpose of that was to help you attain the enlightened state, right? So the chop wood, carry water refers very much to just the basic nuts and bolts of maintaining the avatar and allowing for that to be useful to the greater good, however and whatever, according to the flow of things, where you find yourself's always going to be perfect. But one of the things that people don't talk about, and I do remember reading a chapter in the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I don't remember the context of it, but I do remember nodding my head and thinking this is exactly how it is, like the guy's just onto it. And I don't know that Eckhart is enlightened, as in face-to-face with God, or whether he has had the simply the experience of oneness, which is pretty close, like it's a whole, I'm one with all things. I remember listening to John Carrey, the actor from The Mask and from Truman Show. I think it's Jim Carrey. He was a student or a disciple of Eckhart Tolle for a moment there and had a profound experience. And I remember listening to him describe his experience, how he was one with the mountains, one with the trees, the ocean and everything, and he was one with the universe and all thing. And that's not enlightenment. That is close, but no cigar. It's what you would call a samadhi experience. It's on the way. The big one hasn't yet happened. So, but nonetheless, you have a revelation like that or something like that occurs. I mean, you're not the same after it. You're not the same after it. The idea that chop wood, carry water. Well, my teacher's teacher used to say, keep it simple. Feed the body, wash it and put clothes on it and then forget about it, right? And then everything else will just occur around and whatever. But the particulars of occurring around and whatever can look like anything. And in this modern day world, it looks like modern day whatever. So I have a somewhere back here in my mind memory, or a memory package. There's a few memories that go along together of a similar strain, of my teacher's teacher needing a little entourage of people to help him. He did indeed achieve enlightenment, but he always had 3 or 4 people around him at any given time that would do his things for him, because he became incapable of conceptually arranging his day in a linear sequence and things like that, to a great extent. And primarily because salvation is freedom from concepts, and the conceptual mind is the linear mind that starts the day. I'll start here, I'll finish here, and all of these things, and sequence things and do things in order and all of that planning and everything. Well, that doesn't work once you reach enlightenment. You don't think that way. And I'm beginning to notice, my enlightenment was in 1997, and I'm beginning to notice that there is an incredible difficulty when I try to go into the idea of conceptual or sequential time to begin to, and it's just a bad habit, I really shouldn't do it, but but it's like it's just not there. The tools for doing it are just not there in my mind anymore. They've been erased, and whilst I understand what's to be done, it's like, I understand, for example, that to build a brick wall you need bricks, and I can see in my mind how to build the brick wall, but I just don't have any bricks. You could say I don't have any marbles. Pretty close. So anyway, and it was funny because I'm doing well, it's a very roundabout story, I won't talk about it, but I'm doing this little short course. It's to get a specific vehicle license, and don't ask me why. I mean, all things by the grace of God. I'm doing it because I'm meant to be doing it, obviously. Like I sit there and I'm in this 3-day course, and I'm sitting there thinking, why am I here? What is the purpose of this, Jesus? And like, this is post-enlightenment, but my illumination happened first, prior to my mind training. So I'm actually reverse engineering my mind training to help ground the experience, whereas most people would go through the process of their mind training first and then have the experience, or perhaps somewhere along the way. But so I'm sitting there thinking this is all a bit odd, and there's all these people in the class. It's a group, all these people in the class that are all very much up with it and know what's going on. And we're going through the questions and going through the answers, and I'm sort of nodding and going, okay, and just trusting, I'm just trusting the universe is where it's meant to be, because I can't reconcile what's happening. I can't sit there and reconcile what's happening at all. And at the end of the 3 days, like today was the last day, we had a test with regard to what we've learnt the last 2 days, and then there's a driving test, a practical test, which I was fine. That part's fine. I can still drive. But in the test, I'm telling myself, I'm reading through the questions. There's 60 questions, and I reviewed all the material last night. They gave us a book, and I paid attention in class, and I did everything. And I'm reading the questions as if it's for the first time. I'm reading all the technology as if it's for the first time ever, and I've never seen it before, because in my mind functions now, in this moment. This is the only moment there is, and whatever I've heard before doesn't exist, right? It's just stories, and it's just ideas, and it's just whatever, but it's not practically applicable to this moment here and now. So that's how my mind works. And as soon as I try to bring something into perspective from the past, let's say an idea of learning, it kind of just dissipates. It just sort of, it's like that, and then mist. It just goes to nothing. And I'm used to it, I guess. I'm used to it now because I've sort of caught on, but it's the activity of the Holy Spirit. So I'm sitting there and I'm having a moment at lunch today reconciling this whole 3-day training scenario, and I'm asking for guidance with it. And all that I got was something along the lines, and it wasn't clear, it was just sort of like bits and pieces from the course really that popped in. That and one of my teachings from my teacher, one of the teachings from my teacher, where in the Bible, you know, and biblical quotes and things, but in the Bible, Jesus says, you're not of this world. You know, if you're of this world, this would be your kingdom and that sort of thing. But this is not my kingdom. I'm not of this world, and I don't understand fundamentally. I'm returning to true type, and or I am true type awakening up to a more clear memory or activation of that. And the things of the world no longer make sense. And I became quite glad about it. I'm like, thank God. Thank God that what Jesus tells me is true. I'm not from this world. This world's not my home. And I don't fit. That's why I don't fit in here. I've never felt like I've fitted in here my whole life. And the worry that I might once have had about being competent to answer these simple questions, they were quite simple. There was no worry in me about it. It was just like I was almost laughing and joyous at not being able to answer the questions, because it was confirmation that I'm not from here and that this world is not my home. And that was it in a nutshell. But it was even further confirmation when I couldn't divide something by 2. It was a 4-digit number, but I just had to halve it, like divide it by 2. And I got it wrong. And I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure out why I got it wrong. And in the end, I just started laughing. It's like, I can't even try to figure it out. I can't work it out why I got it wrong. And it's like somewhere in my mind, I must have just taken a guess at writing the number. I don't remember making the decision making to just take a guess. But anyway, long story short, I think the instructor felt sorry for me. I did explain that I was having troubles with my memory and I couldn't, you know, like I ticked mental. Do you have a mental illness was one of the questions right at the beginning, and yes, because it's the only way I can explain myself. And I think he took pity on me, and so out of all the class, I was the only one that got an oral, an oral questionnaire. He decided to just ask me the questions, and was very patient. And rather than just a brief question, I think he expanded out the question to make sure that I really, really, really knew what was being asked. And oh my God, I felt so funny. I felt like the lowest common denominator of the class, but at the same time, I felt like the king of the world. And it was beautiful. It was how sweet to be an idiot. I think that's a Monty Python tune. How sweet to be an idiot. Anyway, but it gets like that. The ability to conceptualize the cause and effect nature of what remains of your human experience is very awkward. And I just left a 10-minute message for Tyna expressing my utter gratitude to her for helping. She does all my all this stuff, social media and YouTube and everything like that. Expressing my gratitude to her. I am so grateful, Tyna. If you're watching this video, you probably are. I know you watch all my stuff, but I'm so grateful. I don't have a little entourage. I know even Sailor Bob, who left the dimension recently, left the realm recently, had a few people that were very close to him, Kat and a couple of other people, Peter down there, who no doubt were very helpful to him. But it's the same thing, like in the moment where you have, and I know quite a few people now in my 26 years in the dream of walking this path, let's say, who have had profound experiences and full illumination also, who are in exactly the same boat and don't teach because of it. I mean, that's fundamentally why most people who reach enlightenment eventually have to stop teaching, because they no longer can relate the subject matter to the topic and all of that sort of thing, and it just becomes very difficult, and you enter into this period, I think, of teaching without words. It's just the state of beingness. I feel quite blessed in that because Jesus has need of teachers that can talk through words, speak through words, that I still have the capacity to do that to some degree, and I feel very grateful about that, because one of my most heartfelt pangs was to want to be helpful to my brothers, and I know that with relationship, especially to the Course in Miracles, which is the most comprehensive spiritual document on the planet at the moment, it is very wordy and it is very language identified for a moment until you get towards the end of the workbook. And I'm very pleased to be a part of being able to help with that. I do know people that are very competent with their knowledge about the Course and don't teach at all, and I don't understand why they don't make themselves available in a greater regard, especially when two people particularly I'm thinking of now, they don't work and they don't do anything with their time particularly. But yet they could be very helpful to the continuum. I don't understand that. I guess it's not given me to understand it, and everyone plays their own part. But I am the lowest common denominator. I often used to laugh at the idea of enlightened people in India, because in India, when you reach enlightenment, you do get the entourage. You do become quite well identified with the celestial and the divine in a way where people will come up to you and ask for your blessing, and they'll put garlands on you, and they'll bring you offerings of fruit bowls and food, and they'll look after you, they'll wash you and give you fresh clothing, and like, it's very devotional over there, which is very, very beautiful. But at the same time, I'm glad we don't really have that in the West. Oh dear. I guess a little bit of TLC is lovely and all of that sort of thing, but that whole devotional sort of prosthetic is, and I look at it that way, as a kind of a social prosthetic. It's culture over there, whereas it's like a devotion and a service and a whole thing. It's seen that way, whereas here in the West, for somebody to devote themselves to a teacher or to be of service to somebody who is losing a specific capacity to cope for themselves, that's a matter of noted value, I guess, or recognized value in doing so. And I definitely would not accommodate let's say devotees or people who wanted to do that for me unless they were in fact themselves completely devoted to others, because that is the only way that flows, at least in my mind. And of course to their own service, to their own inner inquiry. And it's a funny little world. It's a funny little world, the spiritual domain. I mean, you think that you're immune from a lot of the isms that go along with spiritual maturation, realization, whatever you want to call it, but really you're not. I'm beginning to realize more and more as I document my own process through all of these videos and Zoom meetings. I mean, I'm consciously following my own awakening process, reverse engineering it, as I said before, and seeing where it is that I'm constantly tempted to validate the form association and being okay with that at the same time. Right? It's like there's no judgment. The whole thing's under the umbrella of grace. I mean, everything's perfect. And the validation of the form association is purposeful, because the whole purpose of it has been re-engineered or reinterpreted, if you like, through the Holy Spirit. And goodness and mercy do follow you all the days of your life. That's a true thing. I have nothing but goodness and mercy in my life, and I feel very blessed, and I'm very grateful, and I want for nothing, I need nothing. I have no desires. I think about things that are desires, and I try to find them in my mind, and they don't land anywhere. They don't take root. I often like to have a moment of reflection on things, and I do that a lot, almost every day actually. I'll sit and reflect on a situation that I've been in, especially this one the last 3 days. And I'll just try to determine a little clarity and a little honesty with the situation and see where I'm at, holding myself to a certain level of integrity with the principles of my spiritual discipline. Recognizing, of course, that it's all temporary, it's all post-schism, it's all a done deal. All I'm doing is witnessing. All I'm doing, as Alan Watts, I love Alan Watts. If you've never heard of Alan Watts, Google Alan Watts. All Alan Watts says is, all you're doing is watching. And that's really all I'm doing now. I'm just watching. Everything is just mind. It's not my mind and your mind. I talk about it that way because I don't have another way to talk about it. I used to get very concerned about the spiritual correctness of my expression, that I keep everything singular, I this and I that. It's like, oh my God, that's hard work. Just talk to people like they're normal people, and be aware for your own distress, be aware for your own loss of peace of mind. That's the whole thing, to be vigilant for the kingdom of heaven. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. But you go through all the processes of these little ins and outs of the spiritual truing up. I guess you call it a truing up. Remembering. I was talking to Rosie today, and we were having a bit of a laugh. She was a little bit concerned about her inability to manage her affairs in the way that she would normally have been able to. And I put her mind at ease about it and told her it was part of the natural process of things, not to be concerned, just to trust God, trust the flow, trust the way things are, because you're actually not learning to communicate in the world. You're unlearning to communicate in the world in a certain sense, but for a new purpose. And you're returning your mind to a state of natural communication, which is seen in light. Communication is seen in light, as it says in the Course in Miracles. Which is just like that. It's nice. If you haven't watched my videos before, when I open my mind, which occurs now through I don't even want to call it meditation anymore, through a natural action which was brought about through the perfecting of a particular meditative technique. When I open my mind, I'm actually communicating with the universe. And yes, the universe does talk. Its language is love. Well, it transpires as love. It's what we call it. The experience of that is through the vessel is always laughter, always happiness. God's will for you is perfect happiness. And so it is. So it is. Amen. I love you guys. If you're just new to A Course in Miracles, read the book, do your lessons. Just keep going, keep turning up. Read the book, do your lessons. Read the book, do your lessons. When you find yourself caught in questions and question mode, what does this mean? Well, just keep reading, do your lessons. Don't worry about what it means. Just apply it, begin it, get cracking. That's all you got to do. I love you. Thank you.